Looks like you're ready to go.
Yep, you're good to go, Mr. Harley.
Okay, so we have the agenda out today. The first thing is the reopening discussions for the updated health and safety plan. Mike's provided a draft of what's changed on that. Mike, can you address that so we can quickly go through this one?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Regarding the updated health and safety plan, we made some additions based on the feedback from Monday night, and I sent it out to the board, and I can, after tonight's meeting, send it out to the public and to everyone else so they can review it as well. But really, we made a couple. Number one, on page 3, I added a draft calendar that indicates the September 8th start date, as the committee discussed on Monday, and the parents can simply click on the hyperlink. It's very simple and straightforward, but I thought it'd be nice for parents to understand that school is starting later and the reason behind that, which would help allows us to give time for our teachers to plan for professional development as as things are changing quickly or could change quickly. Time is needed, and it also allows with the heat and the humidity, the buildings to cool down somewhat. So a later start is what we recommended and the committee previously supported. Additionally, on page 4, Mr. Harley, there were some conversations or feedback that I got about, hey, why didn't you include outside experts in your pandemic team? And all along we simply just did not list them on the pandemic team as they were outsiders. We kept it to district. So what you'll see on page 4 is the addition of Dr. Patrick Shannon, who we've been working with and getting some input and some feedback on our plan, as well as working with our school doctor, Dr. Lubel, and they've been added, as well as Mr. Greg Lazanik's been added, because he's done a great job working on the athletic plan with Mr. McElhaney. So a lot of those things are in concert together. So we just wanted to take that moment and to clarify and correct any misunderstandings or misinterpretations. So I thought was neat.
Mike, to be clear, those physicians were participating. Those people you're adding have been participating in this process the whole time.
Yeah, let me explain how so everyone understands that, sir. Dr. Shannon and myself had several meetings via Zoom, going over a plan, working as a team, trying to understand his thoughts and get his input, his advice. And then Dr. Lubel, what we've been doing is sharing our plan with her, and we've been communicating via email. She went on vacation; she's quite tied up, but we had an opportunity, and they've been both gracious to review that and give their insight. So we just wanted to clarify it, sir. I hope that addresses your question, Mr. Harley. Okay, on page 5 and 6, I'd like the language to be removed. What I did, sir, was we added the information from the governor's order, and then while I was on vacation, the Department of Health came out with some clarifying orders, and we think the new page 8, clarifies that. So the board has time to look that over prior to Monday to review that and see if they feel comfortable with that. Additionally, I had some information on pages 12 and 13 regarding COVID-19 testing updates and Department of Health updates. And what I really did there, Mr. Harley, was I kind of said, look, we're going to follow the direction of the Department of Health and what they determine should happen if there is a confirmed case. And we have to surrender to that because they're the experts. We are not. And I kind of just spell out what that looks like from our purview. And we put recommended language, what we think the next steps are. But again, we're going to defer to the Department of Health like we do for whooping cough or other issues of that nature, that we're going to defer to them and their judgment. And what that means, Mr. Harley, is to ask for a blanket statement of what it looks like is just not feasible at this time. What it means is we're going to adhere to the Department of Health and follow the guidance they did anytime we have a confirmed case. So that speaks to that. Also on page 14, Mr. Harley, what we did there was we added some additional information about visitors. As the plan indicates, we're going to really restrict the amount of visitors and assemblies, et cetera, that go on in our buildings, not only because of the government orders, but as part of our mitigation efforts. But what we're also wanting to clarify is we are going to allow the service providers to come in their buildings, provide those services to kids who may need them, right? Part of their daily function, whether it's OTPT, other organizations. But we're going to do that under a couple different protocols and procedures. One, we're going to make sure that we send a letter to the company saying, look, we're going to ask you to self-screen, make sure that's happening, they're occurring that. And then when they get on our campus and procedures, they're going to apply with really two big things, temperature checks and facial coverings. So we're going to make sure we control the environment, limit their exposure throughout the building, the places they go, and we have kind of limited access to the building. But we do recognize that some of those services may need to provide. And again, we're going to have some guidelines, but we're going to have to work with each provider on a case-by-case basis, but we want to be transparent with the community that we are restricting visitors, that we love our families, love their input, love the parents, but in order to help mitigate the spread of the virus, we're going to really limit what we do. So we go into a little bit of language there that the board can look at. On page 23, what we did there was we added some information and expectations for the bus and what that's going to look like for students. And what we're going to talk about later on, sir, is one thing we're looking at, one thing particular we're thinking about adding is that we're going to provide hand sanitizer to kids so they can sanitize their hands before they get on a bus, come to school as well, before they get on the bus going home. So Mike, Travis, later on, we'll talk about that, but we added that. And then lastly, on page 28, we added a sample student schedule. In this case, what it looks like for a 5th grader. I'm going to review some of these changes with my team between tomorrow and Monday. As you know, I just got back, so we've been hitting crunch time, but it does give the board time to review things before a formal vote's taken on Monday, if the board so chooses. And again, I'll communicate that on our website and social media to families so they can look at it. But that does a nice summary of the updated health and safety plan, sir. And I'll defer to you, but I'm ready to move on to number B. But I know you wanted a quick update on that part, so I'll defer to you, sir, next.
Yeah. Does the board members have any questions on this update? Hearing none?
Yes, I actually, Sarah has a question about I misspoke on Monday. The draft calendar is correct. I thought it was the 24th. It is in fact the 20th.
Is that the only mistake you made on Monday?
I hope so, sir.
Okay. The public, do you have any comments on this? Hearing none, we'll move on then to Plan B.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Harley. I appreciate the time, and what I want to do before I'm going to show up the screen. Before I do that, I kind of want to set the tone to make sure we're all on the same page. We received some communications from community members, from board members, and the one thing that's universal is a lot of people are stressed. A lot of people are going through a lot, and a lot of people are scared. And I don't think we should ignore those emotions. I think we should recognize them and understand that and feel sympathy for that, and treat that with kindness and treat that with compassion and address it to the best that we can. Now, with that said, it's going to be difficult if I go through the next several slides and we have constant interruptions and questions. So what I'm asking is for everyone to treat us with the same kindness that we treat them and the same level of respect that we treat them. Allow us to go through some of the updates, put your questions in the chat room, and then we have Rob, Justin, and the principals monitoring those questions, and we can address them at the end. And we're not doing that to push people off. What we're doing is that for a couple of reasons. One, it allows us to get through the presentation and present what we think is important details that need to be clarified. And secondly, some of the questions that may be asked could be and will be, maybe, perhaps be addressed throughout the brief presentation we have. And I don't want to mitigate people's feelings, because right now, Mr. Hurley, what we're going through is what every school district in America is going through, and our families and our parents. So we're going to do the best we can to be respectful of that and understand that. And we ask that we treat everyone the same way, because not only is leadership needed now more than ever in these type of crises, but so is kindness and so is consideration. What we're doing as a group with all 56 members on this call is a quite difficult discussion, and we don't want to ignore that, and I don't want to brush that off, but we also have to do it in a way I think is productive and civil and reflective of how we do things here in the district to the best of our ability. So with that said, Mr. Harley, we're going to address really 4 items, and I'd ask you to bear with us to go through some slides, and we're going to have the team report out on a couple different things. One, we want to address an update on synchronous learning, because when we looked at our plan, when we were forced to shut down in March, one thing that we feel that we could do a better job is some synchronous opportunities for our kids. So we're going to address that during the conversation tonight. We're also going to talk about having building level town hall sessions for families to ask FAQs, because I'll be direct with the committee. Our town halls have been the last several meetings we've been having about what we're doing, and I think there may be some specific questions for buildings and what the cafeteria procedures at the high school may differ greatly than what it would look at Ben Franklin. So we're going to allow, and as a team, talk to the principals on Monday about what that looks like, and allow some more public input for families to ask some questions that they need to be addressed as well. We're also going to talk about technology, where we are, some updates and our one-to-one efforts. And then we're going to look at facilities and the PPE update. So with that said, Mr. Harley, if you don't mind, I'd like to share my screen, sir, and begin going over some of those updates if you're okay, sir.
Yes, please move ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Randy, I'm going to take over the screen, so just I apologize in advance. Okay, let me go up to the top here. I am hopeful. Mr. Harley, can you see my screen? Do you feel comfortable if I move forward, sir? I'm sorry, I don't have my screen minimized. I'm assuming everyone can see this. Okay, so let's talk a little history, a little background. As you know, in June, the board approved a learning options for our reopening, and the data at that time was quite different. But we developed a plan to give families choices and time to review their options that we presented. It was sent to families via email. It was posted on our website, and I believe shared on social media. And we put a deadline of August 1st for them to complete the survey to fill out their choice. Now, with that said, sir, the survey families can complete multiple times. So if they completed it previously and they said, look, I think it's changed, or my opinion or my thought process has changed, then they can go back and they can definitely go through and change their selection, change their preference. What I'd ask, if anyone didn't get that, email my office, but I still believe it's on the latest news section on our website. But that's the background. So this has been in place, it's been communicated, and we wanted to make people aware of it because we knew they needed time to process this, and we knew things would change, and they're going to continuously change. With that said, if you said, Mike, how did you build the plan? What was your guiding principles? What did you build it upon? Safety at the forefront with flexibility, input from our stakeholders, and then some consistencies for our families. And in that plan, we built 3 options: a traditional model, an ideal cyber model, and a hybrid model, which we'll go over some of the changes, but we wanted to make sure we had some options for family. And we also wanted to make sure we did a survey to our families and collect some input. So in June, what we found in June was the majority of our families wanted schools to reopen, about 80% of them. Safety was a major area of focus, rightfully so. And then there was concerns about inconsistencies with on again, off again schedules. And families, rightfully so, were concerned about the social emotional well-being of their child and how school closure may impact their child. So I get that. In August, I asked Rob recently, I think yesterday, to go through and say, Rob, where are we at right now? Let's talk about this data. What does it look like in regards to checking, the feedback and feelings of the families and where they're at? What does it look like? And can we talk about it tonight? And what we found is a couple of things. One, 70% of our families still want schools to reopen. 15% are looking at hybrid, and 15% are ideal. And I think that's important data for you to be aware of, because when we develop the plan, safety is at the forefront of what we're trying to do, followed by academics, followed by an economic reopening. But we tried to develop a plan that meets the community's wishes and community's requests. And that's what, we're struggling with trying to do. And that's why the health and safety plan, I think, is good. It took so much time to get through because we wanted to make sure that we built a plan that people felt comfortable with. Now, indulge us for a minute, Mr. Harley and committee members, because I'd like to turn it over to Justin and Rob. One thing we did today is we said, Rob, let's go through the numbers. Justin, let's go through the numbers and look at where we're at in regard to this. And what does it look like from a K-12 system? And can we staff this? Can we meet the moment? For those who want hybrid, can we do it? For those who want ideal, can we do it? And for those who want to be reopened, what does that look like? Now, I got to preface this, Mr. Harley. I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Zohorchak and Mr. Heinrich, and I'll go over it. But what the committee has to be aware of, the data is reflective of today. It could change tomorrow because we're allowing families to go back and resubmit their selections if they so choose. And I think we should, right? I don't have any problems with that whatsoever. I think families, just as we need to be flexible as data changes, our families need to have the same type of flexibility. So with that said, Mr. Zohorchak, Mr. Harley, or Mr. Heinrich, I'll turn it over to you if you can help inform the committee about what that data looks like and how that breaks down. What does that mean for us with regards to class size? Because we got one letter saying, look, you can't put more than 25 in the class, et cetera, et cetera. And we want to spend some time talking about that and what that impact looks like. So when the board, if the board so chooses to make a decision, you have all the facts to the best of your ability at this moment. Mr. Zohorchak, Mr. Heinrich.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Robert, okay, I'll just start. I'll just go through some of the numbers of what I found today. So just starting, we primarily looking at our K through 6 today. Kindergarten's a little bit difficult at this time just because I think there's still quite a few yet that haven't registered for school because I think they're waiting. So we focused a lot in on grades 1 through 6, just to give you guys an idea of the amount of students. You know, it says 15% hybrid, 15% ideal. I'll just give you a breakdown of the numbers that we have in grades 1 through 6 at this point, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about what that looks like for our average class sizes, how many teachers that we would assign to hybrid or ideal program. So right now, looking at first grade, there are 26 students that would elect to go into hybrid or ideal, 34 students in second grade, 21 students in third grade, 34 students in fourth grade, 31 in fifth grade, and 42 students in sixth grade. And so just looking at our class sizes prior to any students going into hybrid or ideal program, here's what they would look like. In first grade, it would be an average of about 19. In second grade, average is around 19. In third grade, it looks like the average is around 21. And then in fourth, fifth, and sixth, the average looks like it would be 24. So with the numbers that I gave you, most of them range in between 20 and 35 or so. And then in sixth grade, it's a little bit higher at 42. So in most of those grades, we would designate at least one teacher that would be, you know, completely devoted to hybrid or ideal program. And so if we did that, if we had one teacher in each grade, and then we would have, at least at this point, 2 with that higher amount in sixth grade, our class sizes would remain in first grade. They would still be 19, or a little over 19. In second grade, they would actually go down 1 to 18, from 19 to 18. In third grade, we would have 21. At 21.7, it would go to 21.8. In fourth grade, it would be 24. It would go down to 22. In fifth grade, it would be 24, and it would remain 24. And then in sixth grade, it would be around 24 to start, and then 25 after having one teacher or 2 teachers assigned to ideal and the hybrid program. So, you know, just basically from what I see, it looks like we could designate at least one teacher per grade for hybrid or ideal, and still remain at our class sizes. Lower mostly, but in one grade, it would be one student higher. Rob, is there anything you want to add to that?
Absolutely, and that would, I just want to highlight the fact that the reason we're looking at this is, number one, we're looking to see if it's possible to maintain 6 feet of distance between each kid in every classroom. And then additionally, we're looking at, are we able to staff direct instruction, the what we were calling synchronized learning, where a teacher is dedicated to a group of students who are learning online, rather than what we talked about the other night about a family being able to Google into a classroom. At the elementary level, we're going to try to make sure that we can provide each family who chooses the synchronous learning their own teacher that's only working with online students. And we're going to be able to do that. We were close in some situations to being able to social distance at 6 feet in each room, but we're not there. So by eliminating, by making the students wear the masks in those situations, we're still, like I said, close to 6 feet, but not definitely at 6 feet. And with the numbers, the hybrid model and the ideal model being so high, we're able to free them up and not add too much originally. So we'll be able to address and comfortably staff the synchronous learning model that we're putting in place. The total numbers for students so far, when we're talking about the choices from the families, is actually 73% are choosing to send their children back to the traditional school model with the safety precautions in place. 16% are opting for ideal, which would, and the 12% are choosing to go hybrid at this point.
And Mr. Heinrich and Mr. Horchak, if you could add in one thing we're thinking about, Mr. Harley, and again, I'm not saying we have to do it. I'm just putting on your radar. So if I bring it forward at another meeting, you're not surprised. Based on the low enrollment with kindergarten, we have 2 vacancies that are existing at there. So what I guess the point there is, if we need to hire a staff member or 2 to help out with either the change in class size or the remote learning, synchronous learning, however you want to refer to it, we have some capacity to do that within budget. So we have some options available that we know we're going to continue to monitor situation, because again, we want to allow families the chance and time that if they want to go in and change their decision, or at least submit the decision after they have more information, they could do that. So it's something we may come back to you on. Based on the numbers now, we're I think in a good position, but it could change and we could come back to you, and we're able to do that by staying in budget. But at this point, we don't know. But I did at least want to make you aware of it as a possibility. Rob, Justin, would you agree with that? Anything you want to clarify to that?
No, I think you hit it nail on the head. I think it's right now the numbers seem to be supporting our plan pretty well, and we'll see if they continue on that trend.
Okay. The next slide, or before I go on, Mr. Zahorchak, anything I want to exclude you? Anything you want to add to that, sir?
No, I think that was pretty much it. But and as Rob mentioned in the chat, that data is accounting for 1,521 respondents thus far.
All right. So, Mr. Har, these slides are just some of the different options we looked at. We previously discussed these at committee meetings, so I'm not going to go over them, but I just want to reiterate the fact that we vetted several different options. What I do want to do, Mr. Harley, is spend some time saying, okay, based on some of the feedback we got or some of the questions we had, what are we doing to address some of the holes? And in particular, a couple different areas. One would be technology. 2 would be the synchronous learning. And then the third one, facilities and PPE. So I want to talk about that for a moment. So with that said, when we look at technology, and Randy's on the line, and I'll have him add in who want to speak and if he wants to speak and add to it. Using no district funds, but the ESSA CARES Act funding that we got, we purchased and ordered 200 cameras and mics to help us with our synchronous lessons. Now, later on in the presentation, Rob's going to go over what that's going to look like. That's not the point now. But the point is, we needed some additional tools to meet this moment and get done what we needed to. So we purchased some additional cameras and mics to help us with our synchronous learning. And additionally, we met as a team, as an administrative team. We got together and we looked at our capacity with regards to technology and decided, look, we have the ability to go one-to-one at grades 4 through 8, and as we already have it 9 through 12. And we decided to do that because during the closure of March, we provided over 300 computers, I believe, and Randy can clarify, to families who needed them. So we wanted to make sure that access wasn't as important and they have it in case of closure were to occur, and we could provide some seamless transition to the best of our ability. We also did that with the no new cost to the district by looking at our current allotment and/or looking at CARES ESSA funding. We are looking at the K-3 option because I know someone said, hey, what about K-3? And I didn't have a chance to explain that we're looking at that. We're just not ready to make a commitment that we can do it without requesting additional funding either from the CARES ESSA Act or from district funds. So Randy's in the process of looking at. We may be able to go down to 3rd grade. We're still working on that. But I will say this, at this point, come the first day of school, grades 4 through 12 will be one-to-one. And we have some work to do in the area of K-3, and we have to address that. And I'd like to defer to Randy to clarify anything I may have misspoken on, but I at least want the committee to know we get the message on synchronous lessons, and we're going to meet that moment, and we need some materials to help us do that. And those are ordered, and they're being addressed because I didn't include that in the plan, and I apologize, but I didn't think I needed to. I thought that was a more of an administrative function, and those are things that were done internally. But as it came up in a discussion, I thought Miles will use this opportunity to address this item as well as several more. But Randy, anything I misspoke on from your perspective, your purview that you wanted to address with regards to technology?
Nope, you did a good job, Mike, unless anybody has a question about anything.
Hey, Randy, help me understand this, though. There's one thing I did miss. We're going to have one additional cost that I didn't speak to or include here. We're going to increase our bandwidth, right? Because we realize, look, if we're going to do this, or if we need to go remote, bandwidth, is going to be an issue, and we can increase that. And there's going to be additional cost per month. Randy, can you talk through what that may look like, what you think that may look like? Because I know we're early, we're waiting for a response, but if you could, you want to elaborate on that at all?
Well, yeah, as a district, we have 500 meg internet or enterprise class internet, which is a lot different than what you would, than 100 or even 200 meg that you would have at home. So, but we, as part of our consortium, we can increase that fairly economically. So we are looking and talking with Aaron to potentially raise the amount of bandwidth, the total amount of bandwidth that we have. And we also have kind of a backup internet of 100 meg per second too. So aggregated, we have 600 meg plus of internet right now. So we are looking at expanding that, especially for the synchronous learning, with everybody doing video and real-time things with people, with students, potentially a number of students outside the district, looking at what we're presenting inside the district and things like that. So it shouldn't be too much of a cost for that. The equipment will end up being more of a cost if we have to purchase anything for the grades K through 3 than raising the amount of bandwidth that we have. And the amount of bandwidth that we have is more than any other school district. We upped ours from the very beginning, just because of everything that we were doing in our school district with our one-to-one program and how much we were using the internet every single day.
Randy, this is Tom Harley. Will you be able to bring those costs to the board on Monday?
I can look at it. I can probably give you an estimate cost on Monday. Yes.
Yeah, if you could give us a not to exceed cost, I think the board should consider that and take action one way or the other.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're not talking $20,000. We're maybe talking a couple hundred a month.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the first thing I asked Randy. I thought it was gonna be like $20,000, but no, he assured us, and it makes sense. It really makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and Mike, if the board needs to consider something, it doesn't do us any good to have the numbers on Tuesday.
Agreed. So we're going to work, and we're going to see what can be done to meet that moment, and we're on it, sir. And again, we'll bring it back to the committee. I know we have another one in August, first week of August, so that's where we're at right now, sir. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want the next 3 slides. I'd like Rob to really clarify some of this, because when we look back at what our closure happened, we had to close at a moment's notice. I think we put a really good plan forward, but like anything else, it can always be improved. We had 2 opportunities in the morning, one in the morning, one afternoon, for parents and students to connect with their teachers, via virtual office hours, which if they needed help, they could have used that time to get the help they needed. And what we realized, yeah, that was a great idea, and our teachers done an incredible job meeting the moment and really, developing interactive lessons. But we realized there was a missing piece for those who need it, with some synchronous opportunities. And based on the feedback we got, based upon our own reflection, we really made it a priority to see what we could do to make it work, in case, for those families who go that route, or in case the governor comes out tomorrow and says, look, 100% remote learning, it must occur for the first month, semester, whatnot. So Rob and Justin and I met today, and we put some slides together about what we think reflects what we're doing. And I got to be honest with you, Mr. Hart, are we going to have all the exact details planned out today? Absolutely not. We got to include our teachers in this conversation, include our principals in this conversation. But do we think we have a big idea sketched out that gives people an understanding what it looks like? Because the message was loud and clear. They wanted some families wanted those opportunities, and we want to make sure we provide that for them. So Rob, do you mind if I turn the floor over to you? Just tell me when you want me to go to the next slides, okay?
Yes, sir. So to echo what he just said, we want to be responsive to our families' needs. That was one of our priorities when we started. The other thing is we want to be agile. If we are faced with a situation where we do have to shut down, we want to be able to, switch over to remote learning very, very quickly and seamlessly. Synchronized learning is something that we weren't prepared for in the spring when we had to shut down at a moment's notice, but we're working toward this goal now. And basically what this means is the difference between asynchronous and synchronous. Synchronous happens in real time. It means that the instructor is live with the children, providing direct instruction, working through activities with the children on a set schedule. If you have English class at 8:10, then that's what time English class is. The child that wants the synchronized learning will have to log in and be in that Google Classroom at 8:10 for the teacher to teach them. If math class starts at 9:30, they would hop out and hop back into their math class, virtually at 9:30. And there's some benefits to this that gives some families that want a rigid schedule and some structure, the structure they need. There's a lot to be said for the real-time instruction with classmates and teachers, so that you can, make learning social, which is a very, very important part of the learning process. And there'll be immediate responses to any problems, misunderstandings, or clarification that needs to happen. So how this is going to look now is basically we gave the families three choices, right? Which was the traditional model. You come back to school and you go through the schedule normally in the buildings. You have the ideal plan, which is the online learning, and ideal, the way it is designed, is asynchronous, which means the opposite of synchronous, which is the student can work when they need or when they want, whatever fits the family schedule. If you have to arrange daycare, grandma and grandpa's while you go to work and they don't have internet, well, your child can work in the evening if they like and turn their work in later. That's what asynchronous means, and that's the way ideal is set up. However, now those families that choose the online model basically going to be asked another question, and we're going to call them personally and explain both of these to them so they understand what they're picking, and they will get the choice. Do they want the synchronous model, which will be run by Google Classroom, taught by our teachers, or do they want the asynchronous model, which is the Edgenuity platform or Compass Learning at the elementary level, which would be supported by our teachers? Our teachers will meet with those kids. They will provide feedback on lessons. They will guide. They will intervene when necessary. But for the most part, the bulk of the learning will be done through that Compass Learning program. And the families will have a choice. You want to go to the next slide?
Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So at the elementary level, we're going to do it like this. The number of students that are choosing an online option are reducing our class sizes enough that we will be able to assign teachers to just teach online. And fortuitously, and one of the nice things is lining up here, is that we're trying to put plans in place to protect some of our teachers that are at a higher risk of infection as well. Many of our teachers have, compromised immune systems or situations that put them or their family at increased risk, and we want to do everything we can to keep them safe as well. So the plan is we can match those teachers up with these synchronous learning plans, put them in a room that isolates them from the rest of the building, or even in some cases, some extreme cases, allow them to work remotely as well, and they will run their classrooms of 20 or so kids on a rigid schedule. They will now. It is not going to be 7 straight hours of instruction. Anybody that tells you 7 hours of straight instruction online for a 7-year-old is out of their mind. But they will set a schedule that the students will follow. They'll jump on. They'll have some direct instruction, interaction, social learning. They'll get a chance to go offline and practice the skills that they learned. They'll hook back up with their class later in the day and review what they have learned, and build out from there. Exactly what it looks like right now, we don't have that plan. As Mr. Vukovic mentioned, we would never want to plan that without the input of the teachers. They're the experts. They're the ones that understand this the best, and we need their voice in what this looks like specifically. However, schedule-wise, numbers-wise, this is going to work. Grades 6 to 12 are a little bit more complicated because of the specialization and certifications, and the complexities of those buildings. Many of those teachers teach multiple grade levels and multiple subjects within their area of expertise. So to just say we could free one of them up is, the whole day to teach online is not possible. We are looking at the possibility, if the numbers play out, that if there's a real low class here or there, could we free a teacher up in at least the core subjects one period? Perhaps, but it's not likely. So the students that want to have direct synchronous learning in this situation will be given a schedule just like they would if they were a ninth grade student at the high school, and they will be able to jump in and join virtually the live class that is going on in the high school at that moment. The teacher will have the task, and it's going to be a challenge for them, of teaching the students in the class and somehow incorporating those kids that are joining virtually. We think that our teachers can do this. We know our teachers can do this. We tested the technology today. It was successful. And again, if that's the worst case scenario, if we do find a way that we can free some people up to provide direct instruction, we absolutely will do that. So they have the undivided attention of the teacher. However, this would be the option if that isn't possible. So that's the plan for the synchronized learning. Of course, families that don't like this, that are the schedule's too rigid for them, or they cannot keep up with the hopping back and forth or whatever's going on in their life, we still have the ideal model, which is a more asynchronous approach, which means that they can work on their assignments when they want, and they'll be supported again by our teachers at the secondary level. Each grade, each class that they sign up for will have a teacher assigned to it that will be responsible for checking with that student, making sure they're making good progress, making adjustments along the way, as they always do. Mr. Vukovic, you want to go to the next slide?
I sure can, sir.
So to recap, basically, this is the decision tree for families. Your first decision is, do you want to send your kid to school? Do you want to keep your kid out of school? If you choose in school, you have another choice. Do you want to put them in a traditional model where they'll go through the regular day as close to normal as possible with the safety precautions in place? Or do you want them in a hybrid model? And again, I want to emphasize this. I wish we could go back in time and change the name of that to something else. But that in-school hybrid model is basically an isolation room. It's for students with medical conditions who the parents would like to keep them out of school, but for whatever situation they have at home, they just simply can't. So they're going to send them to school, but they're going to be in some sort of online learning. Now, that online learning can be synchronous, which actually we have this backwards, Mr. Vukovic. Synchronous would be Google Classroom, and asynchronous would be ideal. But they can either do the synchronous learning, which would be Google Classroom. And I know this sounds a little bit crazy. They could be sitting in our school in a room, learning with students remotely who are down the hall in another room going through the same lesson. But if that's what they need for their health concerns, then that's what we want to be able to provide our families. Or they can choose the asynchronous model where they come to our school, they're in one of these hybrid rooms, and they are learning on the Edgenuity platform or the Compass Learning platform and being supported by their teacher. If they choose out of school, they have the same options. The synchronous is a Google Classroom. Once again, K-5 would be a dedicated teacher to each group of kids who would set the schedule and implement the direct instruction to those children. The asynchronous model would be ideal, where those students would work through the stuff, the learning progressions on their own time at their own pace, and then be supported by a teacher who would check in with them regularly. Any questions about any of that? Okay.
Okay.
Really good job.
Well, I think if there's questions, Rob, please monitor the chat room. We can address them at the end, and because we don't want to ignore that either. So let's, if it's okay with you, Mr. Harley, since there's nothing heard, I'll move on to the next slide. Unless there's an objection to you, sir, from you.
No, keep moving, Mike.
All right. Next thing we want to talk about is.
Mike, let me interrupt you. I'm sorry, sir. Can I interrupt you real quick? We do have a couple questions, and rather than, I want to play catch up here a little bit. To Ms. Matos's question, I hope I answered that, but the synchronous model would be a teacher with an all online class, elementary K-5, rather than a combination of face-to-face students and synchronous students. At the secondary level, they will have face-to-face students and students Googling into the classroom, quite possibly. Are both of these options available with special education? Absolutely. We will have special education teachers assigned to these rooms to make sure the IEPs are being implemented with fidelity. what technology is being developed for this. We have most of the technology we need. We have Promethean boards in every class that are interactive already. When the teacher is in the Google Classroom, they will have the Google Meet feature, which we are using right now. They will be able to share their Promethean board screen, just like Mr. Vukovic is sharing his screen now. Anything the teacher does to their Promethean board will show up. They'll also be equipped with the webcams and microphones that Mr. Vukovic referenced earlier, so that the students online will be able to hear and everything that's going on in the class and see what's going on the board. They'll be able to ask questions either audibly or through the chat room you are doing right now. And the teacher's just going to have to, occasionally come over, monitor the chat room, or have some sort of system developed for when questions will be asked by the online people. The blue side of the slide is reversed. Yes, you're correct. We fixed that. Hopefully, hybrid model in schools, would the children still go all day, or would they have a shorter day? The hybrid students will have absolutely have a shorter day. In order to keep them separated, we're going to provide a different bus for them. That bus will run after the other buses go, and they will take them home before the other buses pick up the students. And again, this is a good thing for those kids in hybrid, because they're not going to leave that room much at all, except for mass breaks occasionally outside, occasionally possibly lunch, if lunch isn't provided in that classroom, and for their recess at the younger ages, which will also be separate from the other kids. The added safety of keeping them isolated with that small group of students is what we're after here. So yes, they will have a shorter day. Will synchronous learning be available for families who choose in person if a shutdown happens? Absolutely, Jessica, that's the plan. We wanted to build a plan that was agile. So if we shut down, each teacher is going to be asked this year to maintain a Google Classroom that complements what's going on in their classroom, so that if a shutdown happens or a class is forced to quarantine or something like that, they can seamlessly the next day get on the Google Classroom, meet with their teacher synchronously, and not miss a beat. By having students logged in remotely, what are they viewing? I think I answered that. The Promethean board. This is a whiteboard by a teacher. I think we're good there. Traditional model still allows students to be synchronous if they need to quarantine. Yes, I just answered that one. And can family choose the school hybrid, or only those with? No, any student can. Any family can choose the hybrid option. However, once you choose that hybrid option, you're going to be limited in your choices from there. If you choose ideal, your online learning, whether it's synchronous or the traditional asynchronous ideal program, you could still have some flexibility. For example, I want my kid to learn math, English, and social studies online, but I want them to come in for science because it's more hands-on and I want them to do the labs. In ideal, you have that choice. In hybrid, we're not going to give you that choice because we're trying to isolate these children from the other students. So if you choose the hybrid model, all of your learning must take place online in that classroom. Now, the hybrid model, however, is available for families when they need it. So if you can keep the children home on Mondays and Tuesdays, but you work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can learn remotely Monday and Tuesday and send them to the hybrid room Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But they will be in that hybrid room, for the duration of the day, other than the mass breaks and recess. I think
so Rob, I have a question. So really, there are three remote options. There are two different ideal options. One is you do all the learning at home. Maybe there are three ideal options. One is you come in for certain classes that are delivered by a teacher, not online. And then a third is that you're actually in an ideal room in one of our buildings, learning with a small group of children. But you're all on your own computer, working at your own pace, but you're in our buildings. Is
Exactly.
that correct?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am. An ideal is always like that. You can take some of your courses remotely and you can come in for certain classes. So that's always available as an option, but it lends itself very well here. But yes, you explained that very well.
So that being said, that light bulb just went on for me. I think I've always known that, but haven't thought of it in that way. So maybe we want to put those, like delineate those models in our materials so parents understand those 3 ideal options.
Yes, ma'am.
And then, so if I choose to send, if I choose the synchronous learning model for my children, so they would be learning real time. And if they want to take math at school, but do everything else at home, that is not an option, if I'm understanding correctly.
Say that to me one more time.
So if I want to do the synchronous, where the teachers are using the Google Classroom, and like your example, science, say I would like my children to attend school for science and not attend at home with the synchronous model, I cannot do that. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, I would argue you could do that if you wanted to
do that as
learn.
well. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you, let's say, certain things, limitations to this model are going to be some of our elective classes, like tech ed. When you're working through the tech ed class, there's a lot of hands-on projects. They don't lend themselves well to distance learning. If your priority is to keep your child out of the schools and away from the potential infection, then you are going to probably have to choose something other than tech ed for that elective. However, if the tech ed is the priority, you absolutely would have the choice, if you choose the synchronous model, to send your kid in for the lab portions of those classes.
Wonderful. That's fantastic news. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And one thing, Rob, I don't know if you and Justin want to elaborate or speak to it, and I don't mean to put anyone on the spot. One thing we're going to have to work through as we go through this journey of reopening and what it may look like is, and I want to be honest with everyone in the community, if a student's struggling and not doing well with those kids who may be at home, working on certain classes at home, just like we would in school, we may need to intervene and talk to that family and talk to that child about what could be done to get that child back on track. Because, you know, the one thing we don't want to do is put them on a pathway and they're on cyber and they're not doing well. So is it anything different than what we do in the regular day? No, we're going to intervene. We're going to treat that family with kindness, that child with consideration, and develop a plan of support to help that child get back on track. And those conversations are going to be on a case-by-case basis because they're going to be different to each and every family. But that's going to be part of the ongoing monitoring of expectations and systems of support for our kids. Would you agree with that, Rob and Justin?
Absolutely, 100%.
Agreed.
And the only thing I want to say before we move on to facilities is, you know, the association leadership as well as the association, the teachers themselves, they've been absolutely amazing. Not only working with us, giving us feedback, giving us input, but meeting the moment and putting the best they can forward to our kids. So I'd be remiss if I didn't just recognize them. I know it sounds silly, but I think it's important to do so. So Rob, I'm sorry, any more questions you want to address before we move on, sir?
Yes, sir. Just 2 more quick ones. There's a question that I don't know if everyone saw it in the chat room. Is transportation in those scenarios where the child chooses or the family chooses ideal, but they want them to come in for, say, band, would the family be responsible for the transportation? The answer is yes. We have to have the parents bring it because we couldn't come up with buses for every possible scenario. In terms of scheduling, choosing synchronous from home, but you want to go in for band, how would that work in terms of transit time? I think as long as you have them at school at the assigned time, we're okay. I don't know if I'm understanding that question correctly, but hopefully I answered that. If not, type a clarification in the chat. Is it possible for any of the models to do 1 week in person and 1 week in school? One week in school. So I'm assuming you mean 1 in and then 1 week out of school. I think if you choose the synchronous model, we're going to assign you as if you are a seat in that class. And we're going to fill it like that. So yes, you could definitely do the in and out thing. That it's designed for that. So if you were in class, but then God forbid you had to quarantine yourself for a few days, you could go out of the class for a week. And then after you're done quarantining, you could come back in. Absolutely.
And Rob, if I can add in real quick, I appreciate the questions, and I think it's important that we address them, but also I'd like to encourage any family who has questions, either stay on the line with us so we can address them, but also some of these things are going to be customizable based on you and your family's needs, and it may have to include the building principal. So Rob, continue addressing it. I'm not saying to end the conversation, continue addressing them, but let's just be clear. We may have to stay on and get some more information to answer the question concisely and clearly, and maybe follow up with the building level administration involved so they can really add some input as well. Would you agree, Rob? It's just a point of clarification, not please answer the questions, but I want to throw it out there so people know that this isn't the only time to ask questions either. Do you agree, Rob?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to have more information coming out. This is just the basic design. All the details will be more shored up once we have the numbers, and then we'll be able to answer them more thoroughly at the building level.
So I have a couple questions, if I may.
Mhm.
Will there be a new survey coming out before the August 1st deadline for parents to make decisions?
No, that's a great question. Great question. And we have a couple options. We already have the current survey out there. What we could do is maybe do a summary, maybe a one-page FYI, just reiterating some of the things we discussed tonight, and let families go in and redo their vote, because they have the ability to do that. So the survey is the same. They have a chance to just go in and submit another choice on that. So I don't know if we want to issue another one, or we just tell them, please resubmit the previous one. It's up to the board. We could do either or. I'd probably err on the side of caution after this meeting, if the board feels comfortable, allowing us to just communicate with families, hey, don't forget the August 1st deadline's here. Please complete the survey. If you did and you want to change your decision, your input, your meeting, your whatever, you go ahead and just simply resubmit that. That would, if that's okay with the committee, that would be easiest for us, Ms. Leeper.
I'm wondering if the new options need to be outlined specifically on there. What if we have 50 students choose the in-house ideal? Do we have enough space in one build? Like if we have 50 students in Eisenhower choose that, do we have enough space? And maybe that's not an issue, but I think with the very distinct options that you explained tonight, I'm not sure if the survey reflects all of those options.
How about we do this? Let us try to work up the one pager and see and try to correlate that to the survey. And if you feel the committee feels comfortable, we'll resend it. If not, we can redo it. Is that fair enough?
I think that's fair. And then I just have one more comment. I feel like we have made leaps and bounds on clarity since Monday night. And I just want to thank everybody for it, because I think we are all so stressed about this. And I just appreciate the time and effort that everybody has put into this administration. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Leeper. Also, thanks to everyone. Like I said earlier, it's easy to be mean. It's easy to be critical. And we're all going through something that we never done before. And we want to work together. The feedback helps us working together. And hopefully tonight's responsive of the clarity that was requested. But also understand the plans that we're building are fragile, as anyone plans are, with regards to this virus and has this changing. So the comments are greatly appreciated. There's more work to be done, and we just wanted to kind of be reflective of the questions that came forward. So it means a lot, because everyone's working hard. And I know, people say, look, our teachers are off in the summer. They're working equally as hard. They're working so hard trying to prepare. And if you put yourself in the shoe of a teacher, they're preparing for face-to-face instruction, remote learning, or a possible hybrid. So everyone's trying to do the best they can, and they're doing well. We have great teachers, and I stand by them, the work they're doing, and I'm blessed to have the board that cares and an administration that's responsive. And I know that may sound melodramatic, but I think at times like this, we need to be reflective of the work that's done and the reflection on the work we're doing to meet the moment to our best of our capabilities.
Can I jump in for 1 second and say the same thing? I really appreciate you guys taking the time to hear us as parents too. And I do, the one pager you said about describing it, I think is 100% necessary, because like I said on Monday, the last meeting, a lot of parents do not understand exactly what they're picking, or they're picking, but they're still questioning what exactly is going to happen. So that will give us and all parents a better understanding, especially with the options for the synchronous and the ideal, and it might change some people's opinions.
Yes, ma'am. I think it's great feedback. Greatly appreciate it. I'll try to get it. We're going to try to get done Monday or Tuesday. So I'd like it to do Monday, but just bear with us. It may be Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest, if that's okay with everyone.
I'm 100% okay with that. I'm just happy to hear, and I'm glad that everyone is working and doing such a good job communicating, honestly.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, did I interrupt someone? Oh, Mr. Heinrich, are you okay if I move? Or Mr. Heinrich, are you finished, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Harley, if we address the questions, I believe Mr. Heinrich did a great job. Can I move on to facility, sir?
Yeah, I like that the questions are getting addressed as they're being asked. Rob and Justin are doing a great job with that. So let's move ahead, Mike.
Thank you, sir. So, when I got back on Wednesday, one of the comments were, look, you didn't order PPE. I don't think you have enough. And again, it's my mistake, and I did a poor job communicating because I thought this was an eternal issue for us in the board and administration, and I failed to consider the need to communicate with the public, and I have to own that, and I'd like to try to fix it tonight, because to say we don't have it is inaccurate. It's not true at all. To say we don't have enough, well, it depends on how this virus spreads, and I want to spend some time talking about that. And I have Greg Trout on the line, and he can add into it wherever I misspeak or anything I screw up. So one thing we did was we ordered 1,500 face shields for any staff and students, because when we look at those kids who may have a medical reason not to wear a mask or not want to wear a mask, well, then we're going to meet with that family and we're going to talk to that family like we would anyone else and have a conversation with them to talk about what sort of accommodations can be made, and one of them could be a face shield, right? So I understand completely there may be some medical reasons that fall under IDEA or ADA that precludes them from wearing a mask. So what can we do to accommodate them, to meet them, and still ensure the safety of themselves and everyone else to their best ability? To say we're going to have a cookie cutter answer or response to everyone is disingenuous. In fact, it's not the right thing to do. What we're going to do is have those conversations with those families one-on-one and work with them like we would anything else to see what can be done. So we ordered 1,500 face shields for staff and students. We're in the process of ordering 2,000 face shields that, for lack of a better term, are kid sizes, pediatric sizes. Mr. Trout found them today, and we ordered them, and they're on target to be delivered prior to the start of school. We additionally are ordering 1,000 pediatric size disposable masks. So those kids who may have, if the regular ones don't fit, they need smaller ones, we'll have those on hand. So because we realize, look, are we asking parents to send their child with the mask? Yes, we are. But we realize they may lose it, they may forget it, and we wanted to make sure we have something available for them. And we have 8,000 disposable masks on hand. I got an email, someone said, look, having 1,000 disposable masks is not enough. We don't have 1,000. We have 8,000. And what we're going to do with those is reuse those for people who need them when they forget them, but also have them available on the buses for those students who may forget them. Because I'm not going to leave a kindergarten at a bus stop because they didn't have a mask. What we should do is help them and accommodate them, treat them like we would our own child, and give them masks there to the best of our ability. And we'll do the same if the hopefully by then we'll know the accommodations that need to be made. So if a face mask doesn't work, we can work with the family to find something else for them. That could include a face shield, but we're not going to have a cookie cutter, one size fits all. We're going to have to work with those individual families. We may need to reorder later in the year, but talking to Greg, they are available, and we could order more when we need so. But to start the year, the first month or so, I think we're in a solid position, and we think we have, enough masks. And again, this is reflective of the governor's order. We're going to adhere to it and follow it because, it's not a recommendation, it's an order, and we're going to adhere to it the best of our ability. We also ordered 1,500 clear masks, and Greg will do a better job explaining it than me. But basically, Mr. Harley, committee members, it's just like a regular mask, but it's clear. So for those kids who may want to see the teacher's lips or see their face or see their mouth, they'll be able to do that. And when we did that, and Justin can explain it better than me, we thought about our speech people in particular with the face shield or any other teacher who may want that. So we wanted to give them choice too, and some comfort, because we wanted the kids to feel safe and but also protect everyone to the best of our ability. And we think for those who want that, as far as the staff, it'll be there. We're pretty fortunate and blessed. And I couldn't tell you the name, Mr. Harley, but there's a group of local women who are making anywhere from 200 to 400 pediatric size masks for kids. They're dedicating their own time and efforts to make this for our kids. They're amazing. And I feel terrible. I don't remember the name of the group or the ladies doing this, but they're going above and beyond to try to help us as well. And we're expecting them to come our way. And we also completed a survey from a community organization that sent out a survey saying, look, do you want masks? If so, how many? So we put in for additional 2,000 more disposable N95 masks. I don't think we'll get the N95 mask, as hospitals themselves aren't able to get them. So I don't see that happening, but we did put the request in. But then we also ordered 500 KN95 masks for the staff as well. And Greg and the combination of nurses can explain what that means much better than I can. But the one thing we did want to call out, by careful planning, we're able to use those ESSA and CARE funds to purchase all that as well. So we thought we did a good job starting for the initial opening. And if we need to order more, we'll do that. But I don't see N95s being readily available. That's why we're going at the KN95 level as well. So with that said, Greg, I'd like Mr. Trout to then maybe get on the meeting, explain some of the things we're looking at, clarify or elaborate anything I said before we go on to the next facility slide. So with that said, Greg, can you help out and clarify or reiterate anything that we need to do?
Yes, Mr. Brugich. The only thing that really I need to clarify from what you mentioned was the 1,500 clear masks that were ordered. That is basically like it's like a half shield. It would go from the nose and cover the mouth and go down, and has a drawstring that pulls out around. It is considered a mask and not a shield because it's not a full face, but it is on from the nose down. And we did test them, and we tested the full mask that we have, and they are both anti-fogging, which were very pleasantly, they were advertised that way. We wanted to make sure they did work. And that's really all I had to add.
Greg, is there anything I need to clarify on the screen? Because sometimes understanding you speak is like another language when it talks about all these different things. So is there anything that I need to fix on this slide that needs to be reflective for the families?
No, not really. The Pediatric Mask, we were pleasantly surprised to find those. We were originally told we would not be able to find those, and that came from, I believe it was St. Joseph Hospital. But we did actually, we were able to secure those, and they are a much smaller mask I don't have the measurements here with me, but I believe they're somewhere near 2 inches smaller, the 2-inch ear loop.
And Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, when we checked in with each other yesterday and today, the feedback I got from you is, Mike, it's ordered, it's expected to be here before start of school. So other than the N95s, which are difficult for everyone to order, you feel comfortable and you have it on good belief that everything will be here prior to September 8th. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct. We're getting shipments in very quickly. The face shields and the face mask, we had originally ordered a smaller quantity of the mask, ordered second one, and they came within a week. The prices has dropped dramatically too. We were really excited. We thought we did really great the first time, and they actually dropped another 20 cents per mask, 20 to 30 cents. But the pipeline for them seems to be coming in very quickly now. Our suppliers that we're using have not given any indication that we would not have what we need.
And Greg, before we start addressing questions, because I can't see the chat boxes my screen's presenting, I'll let Rob handle that, and you can bring it up and you can help address them. The one thing I do want to tell the committee and speak to the committee about is one thing we're looking at, and I may have made a mistake. I put it in our plan that we're going to try to provide kids to hand sanitize their hands before they get on the bus in the morning and before they go on the bus to go home. We're working with our service provider to see if that's doable, and we may not be able to do it. So one thing we're looking at, boy, for lack of better terms, is we're looking at purchasing, I don't know, these little clip-on hand sanitizer that can go in a kid's book bag so they only have their own personal one. We're not there yet. I don't have a real quote in hand. But Mike Travis, I know you're on the line, and you've been working with the STA, the service provider, about this. Can you go in a little bit more detail about that and how it relates to transportation, what we're trying to do to mitigate the spread?
Yeah, one of the things that was raised was being able to provide hand sanitizer for students as they board the bus. The idea was to maybe mount a large container on the bus somehow that they could squirt some hand sanitizer in their hands as they board the bus. Come to find out through our contractor, and this was actually a directive that we got back in June from Pennsylvania State Police Commercial Vehicle Safety Division. Any type of alterations to a school bus is prohibited, and they will not pass Pennsylvania State Police inspection. That includes any type of a curtain, shield to protect the drivers, or hand sanitizer, of any type of mounted hand sanitizer on the bus. Because the state police won't approve those, we have to come up with another option. So we found this out through Pine Richland School District. They were trying to do the same thing and having an issue with that. So their idea was to purchase individual hand sanitizers to provide the students. I reached out to them. They're getting me a contact of who they were getting theirs through to see what they could do for us as well.
Okay. All right. Very good. Mike, anything else regarding transportation that you would like to update the committee on? Because the only reason I can't see the chat room is because the way I have my screen set up. I could easily fix it. I just didn't do that. But Mike, anything else?
No, I mean, I'm continuing to work on schedules based on the students, the entire student population in the district, providing service for them, trying to balance the loads out so that we're maintaining a 2 per seat level with each bus. And then, based on what parents decide to do, if they decide to transport their child themselves or go into one of the, cyber programs or something like that, then we'll be able to adjust accordingly to make sure that we're trying to distance as much as possible. Contractors already agreed that they're going to be cleaning the buses morning and afternoon, between morning and afternoon runs and after the afternoon runs. So they're going to be working on sanitizing those. So we're going to be doing everything we can to mitigate the spread.
Okay. I think, Mr. President, you had a question, sir?
Yeah, Mike. I about fell out of my chair when I heard that the state police are not going to authorize any kind of mounting of a hand sanitizer or possibly plexiglass behind the driver's seat. This is just another case where you've got one end of government wanting us to do one thing, and you got another end of the government tying our hands. Could Mike kind of verify that that's still the case given the governor's order? And if it is, I would like to prepare a motion for the board to consider Monday night to send a letter of complaint to our legislators and to the governor, asking him to at least untie our hands when we're trying to comply with their recommendations.
Yeah, I think Mike Travis can definitely contact the Indiana State Police and see what direction they put him in. I think that's more than fair and more reasonable. And Mr. Schroeth, Mr. President, you bring up a good point. You have 2 different viewpoints on this, the left and the right, and it's become so polarized where we're stuck in the middle. And sometimes they make rules that have a negative impact on us, and we can only control what we can control. But part of our job is to advocate, and I think Mike Travis doing that and following up is a good thing, getting clarity, and then he can work on drafting a letter for us by end of day Monday for the board to review, and we could take appropriate action because I think we need to advocate where we can, and I'm definitely fine with that if you're okay with it, sir.
Yeah, we just need to go on record and register that that's kind of really stupid not to be able to mount a hand sanitizer on the bus. That would have nothing to do with the structural safety of the vehicle.
Yep.
And it just makes me crazy.
Yep, we can definitely follow up with that. And we'll hold all the questions to facilities after we're done with this slide, and then Rob, I'll ask you to maybe ask them, and then Greg or a combination of all of us can address them. The one thing I also wanted to update the committee on, again, this was internal planning that's been long in the plans, and we talked about it at various committee meetings, but I think a point of clarification is needed. We have ordered bottle filling stations for our buildings. So basically, we are replacing the old fountains with these newer fountains that allow kids to bring in their own water containers and fill up as needed, because we realize and recognize it's going to be hot regardless. And wearing a mask, kids may need a break, and part of their mask break, we want them to be able to enjoy their water, enjoy a little break, and rather than spreading the virus by putting their mouth on the the faucet spigot wherever the water comes out, we think this is a much safer way than doing it. We would, though, probably request, and we're thinking about asking that no one brings plastic bottles in, because that may help spread the transmission of the virus. The nurse has done a great job working with us and advising us as well. But that is something that's in plan. And Greg, last time we talked, we were on target to be ready for a first day of school as well with regards to that. So I feel happy about that. And lastly, we had ordered hand sanitizer, some here, some is on the way. And Greg has assured me that his understanding is it will be delivered prior to start of school. And we could talk about those protocols as it's already in the plan, so there's no need to. But one thing I did want to update the board on is it's the correct sanitizer. And Greg and the nurses, if you want to add to this, because you could do a much better job than me explaining it, but it's the correct sanitizer. I guess it's that 60 to 70% alcohol-based one that was recommended. And then yesterday I got an email, or the day before, about a list of some sanitizers that's been on the recall list. And I asked Greg to go through and look at that, and he assured us it's not. And again, these were purchased under the CARES ESSA funding money we received as well for the PPE. So Greg, can you help update and clarify for the committee about the bottle filling stations and hand sanitizers that was ordered? So the correct thing I may have misspoken on, sir?
Yes, as far as the water fountains that were in classrooms in some of the elementary schools, we have disconnected everything, and that way we don't have any student going to a fountain and attempting to circumvent the bottle fillers that we are going to be installing. We installed one as we had a retrofit. We wanted to make sure the retrofit's going to work, so we ordered one in. It's already installed, working great. So those are ordered. As far as the disinfectant, hand sanitizer, a couple different brands, one's 70%, some of the other ones are 62%, and those fall into the guidelines. We definitely have checked to make sure that we are not on a list that was not approved or something that would be dangerous. Now, we have also, as far as disinfectant wipes, we are basically charging or making our own. We have a generic towelette in a plastic container tub that will be in each classroom, and it's the product that we're charging it with is an FDA approved. So it's one that they could wipe the desk off prior to eating or afterwards. Perfectly safe. You don't have to rinse it or anything. So that's the one product that we're using or going to be using. As far as a pipeline, as far as keeping the supplies, an adequate supply, all of our vendors have assured me that with what I've ordered, plus from what they're seeing coming in, what their supplies are on hand, that we should not really have any type of interruption with any of it.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Rob, I'll turn it over to you if you want to address some of the questions that are coming up. Is there anything that Greg needs to address with regards to facilities, or Mr. Travis with regards to transportation? Can you bring them forward at this time, sir?
Yeah, we're almost caught up in the chat room. We have a question about water containers being left at school or going back and forth. I would say that the best option would be to go back and forth with the students. But so the family can disinfect them every day. And again, we are going to recommend, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Trout, we're going to recommend tumblers with a wide mouth top with a straw available to go into the hole so the child can fill it up without touching the dispenser itself, and then sip it under their mask very simply, right?
That is correct. We do not want anybody to be using a standard disposable bottle. X-Mark. We don't want them using an X-Mark you buy in a 24-pack, bring it in, screwing the lid, drinking out of it, and then refilling it. There's too much of a chance of a possible contamination at that point. It's the way you film, you can do it without it, but our preference is definitely not to have that style of bottle in our classroom.
Okay, good. And the follow-up question, will any containers coming into the building need to be, or can they be filled already? Yes, they can be filled already. We're relaxing that policy because that policy obviously is for, so we can control what's in the bottle. However, given the global pandemic, we're going to trust families and students to make the right decision. And if we need to address some misbehavior, we absolutely will. So they can absolutely be filled before they come. I think we are up to date as far as anything. Well, here's one, Mr. Trout, in the tubs in the classroom with wipes. Will those be Lysol wipes, or will it be a tub like the bins in the cafeteria with rags to wipe the table? Those get gross quickly.
No, these are a disposable wipe, just like a Lysol wipe. They will not be Lysol. I do have Lysol wipes on hand, but these ones are FDA, and that's the reason I've changed going from the Lysol to the FDA, because they are FDA and they are also on the N list. So it means they are approved. So that's why we have changed the style of wipes that we're going to be using.
Okay, Rob, are we caught up?
More or less, yeah. I think I can answer the rest of this in the chat. So please proceed.
Okay. So where we're at, Mr. Harley, is we just want to see what the direction and appetite of the board is. If you're still comfortable with the reopening options as presented, again, I think there is good discussion. I know we're going to have to maybe either do a combination of a over-communicating, re-communicating, a one-page primer, clarifying the families and asking them to submit the surveys. But we wanted to see, if they're comfortable, what we want to do is send a reminder out to families about the need to complete the survey with the one-page primer, send them a copy of the approved safety plan with the tentative due date on approval date on Monday, and an updated school calendar. And then what I think we'll also do is a couple things. We'll make a video explaining the health and safety plan, so they understand what the big ideas look like, so they have opportunity to read it. But we can kind of explain it, because we know communication is important, and at certain levels I did a poor job communicating, and I think that would go a long way. And also in there we'll do is include the reopening plans, what it looks like, talk about the synchronous learning, and then in the video we'll also address how we plan to improve, like I said, the synchronous. But and then maybe what we'll do is I have to talk to the principal how we can do the building level Q&A. So we did the big level plan, it's at our level. We'll talk to the principals on Monday and to give them some time to build up, for us to build up a plan and say, hey, look, what's important to talk about at these FAQs? Because we want to be orderly, right? And we want to be in some sort of topic and some sort of order fashion, so they can, be productive. And we have to talk to our principals about that and see that could be done. But I think that's necessary. And I think that can be done at a building level. It doesn't need to be done here at this committee level, because we did that already over the last several months in these committee meetings. But I think that would go a long way for families to say, look, I got a specific concern about how we do lunch at the high school. So I think that would go a long way, and we can work on that, and we do so as early as tomorrow and Monday. So that's where we're at. And I want to be honest with you, all these plans, no matter what plan you take, they're all very fragile, and I want to be upfront with everyone on that, because we're going to have to surrender to whatever the Department of Health decides as far as if there's an outbreak or a confirmed case, what happens, what directions we have to take, what steps we have to take. And it's difficult, right? I'm hearing now that the color phases, red, yellow, green, may be going away, and another direction may coming down. So it's changing for all of us. But to say we don't have a plan, I don't think is correct. To say we have a plan that has to be living, flexible, and ever-changing, unfortunately, is correct. And that's an environment we have. And I apologize for all the emails and communications to not only the board and teachers and family members, but it's necessary, because this is changing quickly. And right now, with the data we have, we feel comfortable with the plan we presented, and it's really up time to the board to decide. And I'll say this as a personal diatribe: I think somewhat disservice has been made to school boards and administrators who have to make this decision. I think this is something that should be done by the Department of Health at a county level, and or in combination with the us and the Department of Education. But I think we did the best we could to come forward with a plan that puts safety at the first, but it's also reflective of the community needs. And like anything else, we learned from the areas that we need to improve in communication. We're going to do that. The input was valuable. I appreciate that, and we're going to have to work on that and continue to do that. But we're going to make mistakes too. And what I want to do is, our teachers and us, we are going to make mistakes, but it doesn't define our teachers. Our teachers are good people, and they're working hard. And we wanted to give flexibility to families so they felt comfortable, and options that are, that made them available to them. So again, that's where we're at. And I kind of would like some feedback from the board about what direction you want us to go. Are you comfortable with the plan as presented, or do you want us to vet other options? And I'll defer to you, sir.
Mike, personally, I'm comfortable with where we are. It seems like we're coming into focus on our plans, moving into building-wide details now. I'd like to poll the board and see and see what your comfort level is if we can move this plan to the board level. Can the board chime in here?
Tom, this is Uda. I really think we have come a long way on the plan. And I like the additional options and definitions for synchronous and asynchronous learning. And because that seems to be important to our families, I'm leaning towards let's do a new survey, because people may change their mind now that they know, and it's going to be really hard for you to go and reconcile what their previous answer was and what their answer is, you know, in 2 days, and then what their answer is on August 1st. And so I think we might get a better and have a second opportunity, in addition to the recording of this meeting and the people that attended this meeting, to really clarify what all the options are. And then people can hear it, they can read it, they can refer back to it, they get the survey, and they can let us know what they want.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But thank you all for all of your work on this, because this has not been easy.
No, everyone's been working hard, and everyone's been kind and considerate. And again, I don't want to be melodramatic, and don't think less of me. I don't want to ignore people's emotions, but we also have to stay calm in a time of crisis and build a plan that we think that we feel comfortable with, and give our families flexibility. And that's what we tried to do. So we can work on that. We just need some time. Again, I'm not trying to make excuses. It's just we're going to need a little bit of time, but we can get it done early to mid next week, which I think is more than fair. I do, if that's okay with you in the committee.
Tammy, what's your stand?
I think we should also do a new survey, and I am really impressed at all of the work everyone's done. And I feel comfortable moving it forward to the board.
Great. How about you, Tamara?
I think it's going to depend on a couple of things. I mean, I think I'm okay with moving it forward because we're giving parents a lot of options. I still think that our world could be rocked 2 or 3 weeks after IUP comes back. But reflecting on the plan and the flexibility that is included in it, if parents are uncomfortable at that point in time, they can pull their kids out and do synchronous learning at home. So I think I'm okay with it. I know we've said this, that we're going to have the right to change things if things in our community change. So I just want that to be acknowledged. And if we have too many students that are choosing the in-school option, if cases rise, more importantly than cases, I think my concern is hospitalizations rise, then we will have the option to go to the 2 days on, 2 days off program, or just K through 6 as, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I guess I'm okay. I'm sorry for like talking out loud, thinking out loud, but yeah, I think I'm okay now with just the preface that this is not set in stone.
And I think Mr. Harley, Ms. Leeper's spot on. I think when we write the motion, we need to grant the administration flexibility to act in a moment's notice. And I know that's asking for a lot. I won't do it in isolation. I'll involve the board in that conversation, but to me, it's no different, and it sounds silly. It's not probably an appropriate example. No different than a snow day. Like, I don't ask your permission for a snow day closure. We're going to need to have some flexibility in case things go bad, that we have ability to respond accordingly. Does that make sense? So I won't do it in total autonomy, but I just want to make sure that we have some flexibility to respond to because Ms. Leeper's right. It could change.
Well, and two, Mike, I think the community should know that you're in daily contact with the hospital. Yep. So as they're giving you numbers, and if those numbers rise and the ICU beds are full, our community might not know that, but you will know that. And so that'll be important for our district to know, to protect both our families and the community as a whole.
Yes, ma'am. I agree.
Mike, I don't think anybody on this chat is setting this thing in stone forever and ever. Amen. This is what we know today. It's a reasonable plan today. If things change, we will be modifying the plan. Cindy, do you have anything to add?
Nope, everything sounds good, and I'm glad that it looks like we've got everybody preparing for the worst and to be able to go online at a minute's notice. That was a really difficult thing in the spring when nobody had anything prepared because nobody knew. The new survey is a really good idea, and it's coming together. You guys have done an amazing amount of work, and I really appreciate all the stuff you've done.
Thank you, Ms. Cindy.
Julie, do you have anything to add?
Who did you call?
Go ahead, Julia.
I called on Julia.
Oh, I thought I heard my name. Okay.
It's been a long day, I'm sure.
It's been a long day, yes. But thank you very much, Mike and Tom, and your staff. I'm thoroughly impressed. We have come so far, not just in the past 2 weeks, but just since last March when we were sat in the room and were trying to figure out what the heck was going to happen. Would we come in next week or wouldn't we? So I think flexibility is the byword. And I think your team has been really disciplined about not panicking, because it's easy to allow yourself to get into that habit, and things will change. I think the only thing we can predict is that nothing's going to stay the same, and things could happen quickly. So I'm very impressed. I'm not on the committee, but I do think, I think you're ready to go to the board.
I see Terry Kerr's on the line. Terry, do you have anything to say?
I just want to thank everybody. Awesome job. The transparency has been great. The flexibility, the demeanor, the involvement of the community, and I agree the flexibility is needed, and we'll give you that with the motion. And I agree too that we need to do a whole new survey. I think it'll just clean things up. Try to keep it as short as possible. I think maybe some families are getting inundated with these surveys, so I'm sure you'll do your best. Thanks.
Walter, do you want to sum it up?
Yeah, no, I agree that I think with all the hard work that Mike and Rob and the entire team have put together here, I think we are ready to present this to the board, and it's probably as complete as could possibly imagine, given the current circumstances that we're under, and obviously with the flexibility that we may need to change it in the future. The only thing that I would ask Mike, though, and this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, those elementary students in the K to 5 that were to choose ideal, the only thing I would ask would be to somehow provide them some additional information that how important it is for the reading and so on, particularly if those students begin to struggle, that we try to move them into that synchronized program if at all possible, to make sure they stay on top of their reading. That's the only comment I have to make in addition to what's already said.
And Mr. Hurley, if I could, I'm not being silly when I say this. You guys don't give yourself enough credit. People need to realize board members don't get paid, and this is like a full-time job, especially during a pandemic. So I just want to say thank you to you guys. You've been flexible. You've been pushing us to get better, pushing us to improve, but also giving us the room to do so. And that means a lot, because this is not done in isolation. The union was absolutely incredible. Greg, administration, everyone. This is a team effort. It's going to have to be a team effort, and we have to continue to work together. So you deserve more credit than we do, and I appreciate all of you.
Hey, Mike, this is Julie. Can I make one comment? It's one thing to explain something verbally. It's another thing to put up a survey in writing. And I think because the board itself has just been getting educated about the exact definition of synchronous learning versus asynchronous, I think it would be wise to keep the vocabulary consistent and maybe have a little bit of a section in which you define what all it is, because those words, it's not intuitive to say, oh, what's asynchronous learning, because you often think of learning as synchronous. So I would be very careful with how you craft that survey this time.
Yes, Madam Vice President, I think you're right. And I think we'll have to either do like a 1 or 2 page primer or update the original document that is a little bit more clearer and a little bit more comprehensive. So I think your points are well taken. Yes, ma'am.
Does the public have anything else to say on this subject, or can we move on to the athletic? Mike, before we move on to athletic, I'd like to thank Wade and Greg Lazanik and the ad hoc committee for really working this thing through. It has come so far in a month on the athletic and the update. So I can't thank you folks enough. You want to go ahead, Mike, to item number 2?
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Give me 1 second, Mr. Harlan.
Real quick, can I ask, somewhere in there when you resend things out, can you maybe make something known about the attendance? I mentioned it on Monday, you know, if our kids are missing school or we're keeping them home because they're showing any types of symptoms, doctors' excuses and that kind of stuff. Is there a way to, let us parents know that we're not going to be, I don't know what the word is right now. My brain isn't working.
So, ma'am, you're absolutely correct. What we don't want happening is kids being punished, especially if they're quarantined, right? If they're told to be quarantined, it's not their fault, right? So yes, we have to do that. Yes, we have to fix that and get some more communication out there. Erin Eierseman has been our lead on attendance, and she's on vacation. I told her to take it. Like, she offered to be here tonight. I said, no, take it. It's been crazy, right? So take it, and what we'll do probably in a week and a half, ma'am, we'll try to get something out on that, okay?
That's fine. I just want, parents to feel okay if we're keeping our kids home. And like you said, the kids and the parents are not being punished if this is the case.
Yeah, we have to be flexible. We have to work with families because it's uncharted waters, and we have to work with everyone and be kind and be considerate, and that's what we're going to do. And our board expects that. They care about the kids, and they want it done the right way, and that's what we're going to do. But I will get it in probably 2 weeks. I'm not going to lie to you. It may not be a week.
Take your time. I'm just super appreciative. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Harley, would you like to move? Randy, can you pull up the agenda? I'm sorry. It's on the screen so everyone could see it. I think I stopped sharing. Okay, so yeah, Mr. Harley, we talked to number 2. I got to thank Cinda and Mr. Dotery, Miss Uta, the principals, Mr. Lazanik and Rob. They've been working on updating the athletic plan. I would like, though, to hear from Wade and Greg and talk about, look, how you feel the plan's going, where we're at, because I think, we need to inspect what we expect, and we've been doing that. And what I mean by that, we've been monitoring to make sure the plan's been implemented. And I'd like the public to know where we're at, what it looks like, and then anyone else from the subcommittee who'd like to add to it. Because on Monday, we'd like them to bring that forward and have the support to get that the final version approved. But Greg, we'll start with Mr. Lazanik and Mr. McElhenney. Can you please take a couple minutes to update the community on that?
Okay, Mr. Vukovic, and I appreciate the acknowledgement for the hard work on that. And I would also like to extend my gratitude to the ad hoc committee members. This has been a working, living, fluid document, given all of the changes that have come from the state, as well as Department of Health, and trying to embed and incorporate in that. Plus, trying to provide a measure of safety and health, which we think is above the standard, but making sure that we do hit those standards. Working dutifully on the general plan, going through, incorporating those changes that have occurred almost as a line-by-line fashion, making sure that it reads well, that it's commonsensical, that it is consistent in its delivery of information and activity. And then also, I'd like to thank the coaches for providing information on those individual plans and being able to assure our families that our athletics program and our extracurriculars program are doing our students and their families serving them well in that respect. This started out as an athletics plan. It has been adopted as an overall extracurriculars plan, and those extracurricular activities that extend beyond the school day come under the purview of this plan. those activities such as clubs that occur during the school day, they will abide by our health and safety plan that we have for our school during the regular school day. In the plan, we have a lot of information here, complementary health-wise, as well as operational facilities, to name a few of those. Mr. Lazanik has been the facilitator, so to speak, of this plan. As you had mentioned, he is monitoring and enforcing, and he can speak well to the implementation of this plan, as well as how the coaches are promoting it, are supporting it. And one thing that we thought was very necessary was, if we're able to build a good culture and environment with our athletic activities in the summer, we know that that will carry over into the regular school year. In many ways, our students who are in extracurricular activities are by default or actively the leaders in our school. So if we're able to build that environment during the summer, then we believe the carryover will be consistent during the regular school year. So with that, Mr. Lazanik, could you talk about your end of things as far as the monitoring, the auditing, the implementing, the communication with the coaches?
Sure, Mr. McElhaney. I'd like to expound on what you said, and I'd really like to thank everybody for the hard work. The subcommittee, I think the weekly meetings have been great. There's been open dialogue. We've discussed, we've talked, we've implemented. The coaches, I've got nothing but high praise for the coaches. They have taken ownership of this. They went through education and educational training on the plan. The coaches then educated each student before a student was permitted to participate. We have given them a daily log they must complete of COVID-19 symptoms before any student is permitted to participate in a preseason activity. I've been around to each sport at least once a week, if not 2 or 3 times to each sport. Check those logs, they're being completed. Social distancing is being maintained. Just the other night, Tuesday night, I believe it was, I was able to watch both the football team, their check-in and their logging. Social distance was maintained. It was orderly. We have kids being dropped off on a staggered basis, so we're not congregating. We've talked to coaches about leaving activities, staggering, so we don't have a herd of student athletes walking through the parking lot at one time. We've had issues, a couple issues, but they've been addressed, taken care of, and our coaches are so professional. I asked them about what they need to be even more successful, and every one of them expressed to me, please, when you go back, whether it's a committee meeting, a subcommittee meeting, a board meeting, thank everybody for the opportunity that they have been given to work with the student athletes. So far, everything's been going well. The plan has been put into place a couple times. It's worked just as designed. We've talked about culture of self-reporting. I had a contact early this morning from one of our coaches who a student athlete self-reported possible exposure. And that's the culture that we're trying to get now in our athletics, that it's good to come forward and say when you're not feeling well or you think you may have been exposed, that we're trying to get away from the old mentality of take one for the team, play when you're ill, play when you're not feeling well. And the students also, they're working hard. We've got a volleyball team. It's very warm in the gym. They're working out 2 days a week, and they're inside. The gatherings are less than 25, and they're participating in volleyball with masks on. Masks are being worn outside when social distancing cannot be maintained. So, from my part of it, I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity that we have given our fall athletes, our fall coaches, and really looking forward to the future. Thanks.
If I could add to that, Mr. Luzanik, someone had mentioned, forgot to mention, Chris Datweiler, our fitness center supervisor, who has education in exercise and physiology and such, that he is putting together a video for athletes, especially for the fall and the spring athletes to watch. And once we do get ahead, or once the changes stop, he'll be able to finalize this video and to be able to use it. Right now, the video is in rough draft form. We got to view it. It's informational. It's also very comprehensive. And he has developed the video in segments, because as these things evolve or changes occur, like they have and do, he's able to edit that. But we hope to get it to the point where, when the changes begin to slow down or stop, and we know a better direction, then we'll be able to incorporate that. So we look forward to sharing that with the committee when it's ready to go.
I would like to also add one thing that I think the oversight team could would echo is that the message that was most effective when it really hit home about why following these guidelines was so important was this: if you want to play football, we want to provide you that option, but you have to follow the safety rules or we have to shut you down. And the same thing applies to the school. If you want to send your kid to school, we want to provide you that service and that opportunity, but you have to follow the safety guidelines, the mask order, etc., for us to stay open. And that, once people understood it that way, I think it became very clear and they really started to fall in line. I think that was very important. I want to thank everybody on the oversight team. And I also would like to recommend we do something very similar to the reopening plan with the health and safety plan, to continue to monitor those numbers in Indiana County and across the state, to make sure that we're being reactive to the trends in those numbers and make sure we keep people safe. And Mr. Harley, I will just end this by saying that the committee, or not the committee, the oversight team has found that our players, our coaches, and our volunteers have all been complying with the measures, and therefore we are happy to recommend that we move this motion forward to the board for official approval of the athletics and extracurriculars health and safety plan, sir.
Rob, I would like to point out that the previous plan was temporarily approved until this plan showed up. So if the committee's okay, we'll move this forward for Monday night for final approval. Hearing no objection?
Absolutely. I think we've come a long way, and it'll be updated as needed. And, conversations have already started about winter sports, spring sports, what do they have to do? And I think by putting this out there, then other sports can go, okay, well, I can see what the fall sports did. This isn't so overwhelming to do. It's not difficult, but we do have to put a plan in place before we can gather and participate.
Okay, I think we can move on, Mike.
Okay, so under non-agenda items, some things we want to talk about, and we can, number 1, 2, and 3 we really addressed, and number 3 we'll spend more time on August 3rd. But I kind of want to give Mr. McElhinney the floor, because him and I have been discussions about foreign exchange program. At this point, we have 2 students who want to come to Indiana that we previously approved prior to the pandemic shutdown, and we are working on, well, what does that look like? Should we continue? Should we allow any more to come? And how does that really look? And I said, Mr. McElhinney, can you give us an opinion and talk to the exchange program, who's been absolutely incredible, the local affiliate, who's been nothing but great. But we wanted to, give Wade the floor to come forward with a recommendation that I previously sent to you. But talk about it here and make sure you're comfortable with it, and then we can move forward. So with that said, Mr. Harley, I'd like to give Mr. McElhinney the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Vukovic. As Mr. Vukovic had said, there was the request in light of the pandemic and the response and all those changing guidelines and so forth, and heightened concern, sensitivity, and awareness. you know, what were we going to do for foreign exchange programs next year? As was indicated, we had 2 students who were previously approved, and, you know, there were naturally some concerns. Boy, if we'd shut down, how would we handle that? The concern was primarily for not only the health and safety of all of our students, but for those foreign exchange students also. But boy, what would happen? Would those students have to stay here if they wanted to return home? How would they continue their education and so on? And spoke with Ms. Karen Coaches, who is the ISE International Student Exchange representative, but is also a host and facilitator of that program, and has done so for a number of years with us, and very successfully so. And talked with her, and she said, hey, as the facilitator representative of that program and a host parent, that students can go home, you know, as soon as a flight is available, because the home country welcomes the return of their students. Also, that the student could participate in, you know, whatever programming that we have, whether it be remote learning, whether it would be synchronous learning, whether it would be ideal, or whether it would be instruction, you know, continued instruction in the school. Also, that if it became too much of an issue, then she would work for that particular foreign exchange student to be placed with another host family in another district if that would be needed. Additionally, Ms. Coaches said that certain assurances could be implemented, including that, you know, those students would receive a health screening, and go so far that, you know, a local physician would be able to do such a health screening. And if it was required, then the students could be tested as well. I asked her if the students could be by default quarantined, go through a quarantine process, and she said yes. Those students have enjoyed their experiences here. They have contributed to our school climate. It is mutually benefiting. So if knowing that information and knowing those assurances could be put into play, you know, I do support the students coming here. They have been approved, working out those details. However, I also know that, boy, there's a lot of uncertainty as we go ahead, and I would ask at this time that we would just, you know, refrain or postpone approving any more students until we have a better understanding and direction of where we're going as a district in our educational programming.
So, Mr. Harley, we'll turn over to the committee to make sure they're comfortable with that. Wade put a lot of thought in behind this, that we didn't want to hurt people, but we have to, you know, this is the recognition we feel most comfortable with. Correct, Wade? And this is where we want to go forward. We'd ask for your support.
Yeah. Can we have comments from the committee? Tamara?
This is Uda. I'll start.
Thanks.
Up until this week, European citizens were not even allowed to come to the U.S. And I am really concerned that this is going to be one of those things that's going to change pretty frequently. And I personally have worked with a program where we had international students at IUP, and they were scheduled to leave middle of May, and the last person was finally able to get a flight into her home country because the country had closed the border last week. So I'm just concerned that this may not be an ideal environment to do a foreign exchange at a time where our health situation and travel and all of those things are so restricted. And I'm really concerned about the health and safety of those students. If something were to happen and they would want to come home, but they're not able to travel for whatever reason, I think it would be really unfortunate. So at this point, I don't feel like this is a good move right now. We're so uncertain as to what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be providing education. I just think we need to hold off.
Tamara, do you have any comments?
I totally agree with Uda. I don't think this is the time. I know these students were looking forward to this, and it's beneficial to our students as well as the traveling students. However, the school year may not look like it. The school year will not look like a typical school year. So I with Uda, yeah, I agree. We don't know when they'll get back. What if the host family gets sick? What if they get sick? I just think there's too much going on right now. I don't think I can support this.
Tammy?
I thought Uda and Tamara just laid it perfectly. I can't move forward with it either.
When would Wade? When would the last day a deadline be that we need to make a final decision on? How long can we delay this decision?
I'll check with Ms. Coaches about this. I know the students arrive sometime in August, but I can check whether to find that out, the information.
Okay. Would you also confirm what Uda said, that people from Europe can't come to America anyway?
Yes.
No, they can come now. A week ago, they were not allowed to come. And so if that situation keeps changing, that's not something we have any control over.
Okay. Wade, check into that. We'll table this and we'll bring it to the board for next Monday.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to talk about it and consideration.
Tom, did you say we will not or we will?
We'll leave it on the table in the committee for a bit and see when decisions have to be made.
Can I ask Wade to look into one more point on this, and that is if a student who's from overseas gets really sick with COVID, I think there has to be ironclad legal arrangements that if something happens to the student, a medical emergency, not just involving COVID, but particularly involving COVID, what kind of documentation will be in place for whomever to act in a fiduciary capacity?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, I think we can move on.
Okay. The last one is regarding an outside use from the YMCA use of the junior high swimming pool. I know there's an email sent to Jared and Mr. Neal are working on that. I know Mr. Harley, he includes you in email. If you want to give it out, give a little bit of explanation about the need and desire. And as I apologize, because I haven't given it enough attention as I've been working on the other items. But I know he came forward with a request that is benefits of the community, and he may run out of room. So I think he's coming to us, asking us for a possibility, which in this case, it would go through the standard building usage form. But I applaud Mr. Harley for running to bring it forward to talk about it. It's opening our building. So Mr. Harley, is there anything you want to clarify or?
Yes, Mike, the problem that the Y has is that they can only occupy their pool to 50% capacity. So they're looking for other opportunities. The zinc pool is not being filled this year. And of the 140 kids that are on their swim team, 130 of them are Indiana Area School District students. So he would use the junior high pool for only our students. If we would give him permission to use that. And he's beginning to explore this possibility, and I thought getting it to the committee and the board would be useful. I know we've talked about not opening our pool, but there's going to be 70 or 80 kids that aren't swimming this year because of it.
Yeah. Tom, speaking of that, I think in terms of audit and finance, we need to know how the cost structure would work on this, because the pools that it's an expensive piece of equipment.
At this point, Julia, it would be under the same terms as anybody else using the pool, unless we strike a different deal.
Is it in proper repair at this point?
I don't know the answer to that. Mike, do you know? Rob?
Mr. Trout, are you still on the call? Is there anything that can elaborate about the pool repair?
Yes, we don't have any current repairs that we know of that are needed. Well, we do have a leak downstairs in the gutter. We're going to be taking apart and resealing it. But as far as anything else, we have a given age of a lot of the components that we are going to have to look at. We've talked about this several times about the air handlers on the top. And we will have to consider the replacement of that sometime in the near future. and that was a very expensive endeavor. But as far as the pump and everything else, the boiler, they were working when we shut everything down after the students left.
We have a question that showed up in the chat about if zinc's not in use, and maybe Mr. Lazanik or maybe Wade, if zinc's not being filled, does that mean we only have a swim team and not swimming and diving? And we may not know.
I don't have an answer to that as of right now.
Okay.
Great, Mr. Lazanik, can you and Mr. McElhinney work together and get something to us possibly in the next week or so we can try to get any sort of clarification out to the board?
And then I have a related question. What's the status of use of the junior high pool for other things? Do we have commitments to let other entities use the pool currently, or is this the request that's on the table? The only one?
I don't know, Ms. Lowry. I'd have to speak to Jared. All the building requests go to him. I don't know, but I can find that out, man.
But at
I don't think there are.
At the same time you say that, Mike, all the requests are going directly to Jared. There is no recreational use of the pool right now. I suspect, Utah, that this is the only request that we have right now. And it's unique in that it would only be for Indiana area school district kids.
Tom, I think the world of the YMCA and the programs that they offer, but I just think we have to have it in the context of a larger discussion. Not tonight, but at some point, maybe in the future.
Okay, well, again, my concern is that he's struggling to find a place for these kids to swim. We have limited meetings coming up. If this is going to be a board action, one way or the other, it probably needs to be sooner than later.
So you want to vote on it Monday night?
I don't know if we'll be ready to do that.
Tom, just to caution you, until they have a health and safety plan, I'm not sure we should make a decision because some of those things may impact that.
And that would be that would certainly be one of the conditions that the swim team would have that particular swim team working with our coaches would have a functioning health and safety plan.
We may also want to confirm what is going on at IUP with zinc.
I'm doing that. All right. I'm trying to get a hold of Greg, see if he has any information, but if not, we'll take care of it.
Okay. Yeah, and that information did not come from IUP, Uta, so please confirm that. Okay. We'll table that discussion. Mike, you want to do anything else tonight, or you want to go home?
Wait, Tom, can I say something? When does the Y need our answer? I know they're doing swim team practices at MAC right now. Do we know a date? Just so we can be thinking ahead to put it on our August calendar.
Tamara, I always thought that the MAC pool practices were relative to the YMCA summer team. I could be wrong.
Right, but I'm wondering how long. I don't know how long the summer team goes. Usually the school year team doesn't start until several weeks into our school. So we may have school year. So we may have a month or so.
Because swimming and diving is a winter sport.
They're winter sports. I don't see what.
It's October.
I'm a swim team parent, so do you mind if I just?
No.
Right now we have swim practice at MAC. It goes until the middle of August. Then they normally do an extended swim season, and assuming that everything stays okay, we'll probably continue that at MAC as long as the weather's fine. And then mid-September is normally when we come in and do fall swim team. So I think you guys have a decent amount.
You're talking about summer swim.
I'm sorry,
right
what?
now they're practicing for summer swim, YMCA summer swim. It's not Indiana area school district swim team.
No.
That's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
That would be correct, but it is our students.
It is our students, yes.
Anybody can join.
I think that'd be great because I would hate to see my kiddos not get to swim this fall, but it is very possible.
Julia, you're right. And anybody in the county can join the YMCA. I'm told that there's only 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just our students. It's anyway.
I am told that there's only 10
I'm
students out of the school district. And so that's 130 of our students are swimming for with the YMCA program. Mike, I think we can move on.
Okay, yeah, we'll table that. We'll try to get more information because I don't think we're ready. We don't have all the information. I can work on that with Jared on Monday. I skipped Rob. Oh, sorry, Mr. Kerr. Go ahead, sir.
All right, we could put that on the next building grounds, maybe.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely. As Mr. Heinrich called out, I skipped him on number 3. I apologize, Mr. Heinrich. The floor is yours, good gentleman.
Yes, sir. I will be brief out of respect to everybody's time. I know we've had one long meeting this week, but I do want to talk a little bit about the importance of this cyber school issue. I know a lot of parents out there, and there's a lot of parents here tonight, and we wanted to address this with this audience. There's a lot of parents who are looking at the situation and really considering cyber school. We want to talk a little bit about the financial impact as well as the academic impact of that decision. Each child that goes to a cyber school costs the district approximately $22,000, which is a staggering number. On top of that, unfortunately, the data does not support the investment, as the cyber schools consistently outperform our ideal kids. Thank you to Mr. Doug Johnson, who is a math guru and ran some numbers for us.
Rob,
Yes, sir.
I think you misstated that last statement.
What did I say?
You said that Ideal was outperformed by the cyber schools. I think you meant.
Oh, no. I flipped that around. Yes, if I said that, I apologize. Ideal consistently outperforms the cyber schools. What we did was we looked at standardized test scores over the past few years. The cyber schools locally, our PA Cyber 21st Century Charter School, and we compared that to students who take one of these tested subjects in our Ideal program. So if you took Algebra 1 in Ideal, we counted your number. We separated that from everybody else. So now some of these students will take these classes exclusively online. They're completely online students. Others choose to take these courses on our Ideal platform while they attend other classes. But if they took the tested subject online, that number reflects this. PA Cyber Charter School last year had 20% of their students pass the Algebra 1 Keystone exam. Our student, that's a 43% difference. Our students scored 63% past the Keystone Algebra exam. PA Cyber had 24% of their students pass biology. Our students outperformed them by 51, almost 52%, with 76% passing the biology Keystone exam. Students who took the literature, PA Cyber scored 45%. The Ideal students scored 75% of them passed the Keystone literature. And the 21st Century Charter Cyber School, Algebra 1 was 21%. Again, ours was 63%. Biology was 28%. Ours was 76%. And Keystone literature was 54% proficient or advanced. Ours was 75% and some change. So the data bears out that the program that we have is outperforming the local cyber options, and the budgetary impact is significant as well. What we want to do is we want to update the committee on our efforts to communicate this fact to the public. We're working on a letter to the families with a flyer, some sort of graphic that is going to demonstrate this data, and really plead with the families to keep our kids in our district, our students, our teachers, our community, our diploma, because as every student that graduates from Ideal graduates with an IASD diploma. We're going to post that also on our website and social media. And we ask the parents spread the word when the conversation comes up. We're making every effort to make our program synchronous or asynchronous and very user-friendly and the highest quality education these students can get, even in the midst of this pandemic. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that option that stays in its it's a high quality choice, and we need your help to make sure that people communicate that. That is all, sir. That's all I wanted to share.
Tom, can I say that I noticed in the paper today, Rob, that State Treasurer Eugene Pasquale he made quite a statement, and he's pushing the state legislature to start to force the cyber schools to disclose their numbers more thoroughly. I mean, I don't know if with numbers like you've just stated, I certainly don't know what our local taxpayers are paying all this money for if these kids aren't being educated in these schools to a degree of, I mean, you're talking about landslide numbers. In that one instance, what did you say, biology or algebra or something? I mean, you said 70% versus 30. That's not even close. There's something wrong.
Yeah, our students outperformed those students by 51% was the largest gap.
Yeah, I mean, that's an earthquake. And if that were an election, it would be an earthquake. So it does seem to me that maybe we should send letters to the state legislators and say, we better do what the state treasurer wants us to do here and move on it. Because it's been a huge problem in our budget ever since I've been on the committee. Thank you.
And if I can add to that, Madam Vice President couldn't be more correct. What she's referring to is the auditor came out and said, look, at a time when districts are facing enormous revenue shortfalls, taxpayers need to look at where their money's going. And what he found was Lincoln Learning Solutions has an nearly $82 million reserve general fund. So you have to really question the amount that they're charging school districts as the rates that they get and how it doubles for those kids who may have special needs. So we're not saying I believe in my teachers. I believe in what they do. I believe what they can deliver. We made some mistakes in Ideal. We have to get better, and we're going to meet that moment. But when you look at an $81 million general fund, what's their overhead? What's their cost? You've really got to question that, and you got to really look at that. And look, my thoughts on cyber schools are pretty clear, so I'll shut up with that part. But I will say this: I appreciate the feedback we got for the need to improve synchronous learning, and I appreciate the leadership of our teachers and our admin coming up with a way to meet that moment. They're good people. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of the work we're doing, and I'm proud. I really am. I'm trying to really pleased where we're going.
Mike,
let's move on to item 2 on this.
Tom, just 1 second, please. I won't be long, but to tag on to what Julia and Mike were saying, did we not pass a resolution and send a letter here within the last couple of months, sort of asking the various legislative and governor's offices to consider the reform of the charter cybers? And
That's correct, Mr. President. Nearly all 500 school districts done that, and I also, at a meeting with our local legislators, Senator Pittman and Representative Struzzi, offered to offer any type of input, feedback on different ways to have cyber reform. So that those things have been done, but I think to Madam Vice President's point, keep communicating it, keep over communicating it, and I think it needs to be done. But yes, sir, we have done those things. That's correct, sir.
So what I'm suggesting is now with the Auditor General's report, I'm wondering if we send another shorter letter that, says reference our letter from April or May or whatever the date was on it with the Auditor General's report, would like you to reconsider the reforms. In other words, continue to put the pressure on where it needs to be made.
I can do that, sir. I can definitely do that. And Mr. Harley, number 2 has already been addressed as far as the one-to-one laptop initiative. We explained what we're looking at 4 to 8. We explained that we're going to look at the elementary schools, but Mr. O'Neill needs some additional time. And if we need additional cost or resources, we bring that forward. And so we did already address number 2. I feel comfortable. But Mr. McElhaney, is Mr. Lozanik on the line? Because I know you said he may get on the line with some swimming information. I want to make sure that I know there's some swimming parents on the line. If we can kind of nip this in the butt or update the committee, let's do that. If not, then I have nothing, Mr. Harley, further.
Mr. Harley, sir, Ms. Jessica Puffenbarger is requesting a moment to speak.
A moment.
I'm annoying, and I'm sorry, but I think that when you talk about the letters for this, like to pick IDEO versus the cyber school, I think a lot of the parents are going based off of March, which is not really what you guys have and what you guys are creating now too. So that is huge thing to think about, is that they're looking at that as their decision. And I'll be fair to say I did too until I've sat in and listened. So I think that's big thing. And then also cyber schools let their kids opt out of a lot of the standardizing tests, which makes a lot of those things go up and down and not be as accurate. But I still think, I mean, I prefer to stay with the district myself, especially after all this. And I'm getting ready to write to my friends the same thing, that I feel really confident in sending my kid to school, knowing that we can seamlessly transition if she needs to stay home, if we shut down, or those that just want to use the synchronous option are going to have that. And it's going to be way better than what we saw in March, because March was not an example that they should be referring to.
So to piggyback off of what Jessica said, I think it makes it even clearer that whatever we put out needs to look completely different from what was presented in March. And whether that's color or format or orientation on the page, or it's a legal size piece of paper, something that makes it very clear that this is updated and revised since March, and this is, to help you make a decision.
Yes, sorry, I'm bad with words.
No, you're both.
No, you did a great job. I just wanted to, I think because of what you said, Jessica, it does need to look drastically different.
Yeah, the parents just need to see there is a huge difference in what we're looking at coming this year as to what we saw March. No one was prepared. They did the best they can. We all, adapted the best we can, but that cannot be what's in their head for what's coming.
Right. I agree, Jessica, and thank you for your support. And I think we need to elect her as like the community member on our committee. Tom, what do you think? Anyway, I think now that we're going to do synchronous learning, we can absolutely do it better than them. I think that was the missing part in the spring. We didn't have synchronous learning. And I think with adding that to our services, I have no doubt that we can do it better than them.
I agree. I feel.
And I think parents, I think that's what parents, I mean, that's what we've heard, right? We've heard parents wanted synchronous. So I think that doing this shows them we're listening. We want your feedback. We value your feedback. We're listening to your feedback and we're delivering what you asked for. So, I hope they appreciate that we really are listening because we want what's best for the students.
I will say I 100% appreciate it. And like I said, I'm not a talker. I'm not good with words, and I normally just keep my mouth shut behind the scenes. But Walter yelled at me the other day about making sure I speak up.
Walter's good at that.
Yeah, Walter yells at all of us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jessica. Your compliments are well taken.
Can I also suggest that when you guys, when we send out the choices for people to pick, Rob, you include those statistics between the cyber school and Ideal, and like footnote the sources. That way, parents don't have to search for it, and they can see the difference.
Yes, ma'am, we will.
Listen, folks, it's been over 2 hours now. I think we've covered a lot of waterfront here in the last two meetings. If anybody has anything to say, I would appreciate it to be quick, and let's go home. Anything?
Mr. Harley, I had Greg Lazanik. He was in contact with the swimming coach, and he's having some electrical issues at his house. Power just flickered. He's trying to, it looks like he's back on. So he should be here if you want. He can share information that he found out talking with Coach Weston. Mr. Lazanik?
Hello, can you hear me?
Greg?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, Greg. That was informative. And thank you, Greg.
His mic's on. Mike, turn your mic on, Greg.
Now, okay, it wouldn't let my mic come on now because of the size of the call, but now can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that. I mean, my
Yes,
power
sir.
flickered for a nanosecond, and the whole internet had to reboot. But I was able to contact Coach Garrett Weston, our coach, and he's been in contact with Chris over at IUP. And the athletic department is currently making a health and safety plan. That sounds familiar. And we we are Indiana High School Swimming is included in the health and safety plan. So we should be okay, Garrett said, unless someone from the administration makes a ruling of no outside groups. But as of right now, we should be good for swimming.
That's good news. That's good news. Because swimming is
Low
a
risk.
low risk sport, from what I understand.
Tough to wear a mask when you're swimming, though.
Low risk for COVID.
Well, no, it can be done.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Greg, are we going to still use zinc at the same price?
As far as I know, yes, everything's at the same price. Yes. Now that usually that goes right between IUP and Jared, but as far I have not heard of any price increase.
Can we end this meeting? Okay, listen, we had almost 80 people on this call, and I congratulate the public for working with us and figuring out how to get through a Zoom meeting. It's been quite an eye opener. So thank you. We'll see you Monday night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Is Stephanie Jasevich still on the call? It's easier for me to answer your question in words than typing.
I'm here. Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm here.
So, yeah, the dances, all assemblies at this point of large groups have been postponed. So any large gathering will be postponed until we get into a safer spot. But yeah, so that's the the governor's order of 25 indoors and 250 outdoors does not apply to schools except for extracurricular settings, is what we're being told by our legal team. So we don't have to worry about it for instructional purposes or lunchroom, but we do have to worry about it for student gatherings socially. So that's what we're told.
So that includes things like the fine arts, plays, all of that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah, we're going to have to think if we can do it outdoors. We're going to have to get our drama leader and our arts teachers together and see if we can come up with a plan that gives those kids the opportunities, because that's what we want. I mean, I feel that we should be able to put our heads together. We got a lot of smart people that should be able to figure something out and still comply, but I don't have any specifics for you yet.
Okay. And I assume things like at the junior high, again, building specific, but there was speech team and so forth. I assume all of that's off the table because they were having to travel to other schools to even do that.
Those decisions are going to be left up to the organizations that govern those, just like athletics. If they can conduct the activity safely, we believe they're going to proceed. And if they cannot, then they'll be canceled, obviously.
Rob, this is Uda.
Yes, ma'am.
We did talk about folding those types of activities into the athletic and extracurricular plan because some of their needs are going to be more specific and vary from just a blanket plan that we have. So that's still something that that oversight team is considering.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Good point. Brandy, can you answer Josh's, or is that Chauncey's question about the thread in the chat? Or did Shia answer that?
Mrs. Mock, since you're on the conversation, I have a question for you about the nurse area.
Yes, ma'am.
Carrie, who you know.
Yes.
We were discussing about the kids coming down being, possibly having symptoms. Do you guys have, and she was certain you would, but I just want to double check. Do you guys have a way to keep, like Sarah, safe coming down for diabetic needs versus those that are coming down with, you know.
Yes, we have a separate room closed for isolation for those who have symptoms, and Sarah will have her own space with me. She'll be wonderful.
Perfect. I knew you would, but I just wanted to ask because I think that is also another parent's concerns.
Yes, I know it is. And we also, in the nurse's office, we have ordered our own PPE, and we have extra masks and such for kids if we have to put them into isolation. But the children that come down will be kept separate from those who have symptoms.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, good night, everybody. Have a good night.
Good
I
night.
agree with you, Dr. Rutledge. She is amazing.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you.
Bye-bye.